friends and colleagues, very welcome to this lunch event on the new Transitional Justice Media platform, Justice Infonet. And first of all, on behalf of the Swiss Embassy here in The Hague, let me give you all a warm welcome and a thank you for your interest in this event on the new Transitional Justice Media platform, Justice Infonet. Next to Pierre Hazan and his team from the Fondation Hirondelle, who just arrived from Geneva. It is a particular pleasure for me today to welcome Mr. Serge Brammertz, the Prosecutor at the International Court for the former Yugoslavia, as well as the Registrar of the International Criminal Court, Mr. Herman von Hebel, who will both say a few words after Pierre Hazan's presentation. As the Swiss ambassador, I'm particularly proud to host this event for and together with the Fondation Hirondelle, a Swiss non-governmental organization of journalists and humanitarian aid professionals, which has been creating or supporting independent, civic-minded news media in conflict, post-conflict and crisis zones since 1995. The Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, which itself is very active in the field of dealing with the past, transitional justice and international criminal justice in general, very much values the work of the Fondation and its network of radio stations and journalists on the ground, and is very much looking forward to the launch of the new media platform, Justice Infonet. Talking about communication strategies in fragile and post-conflict situations, it cannot be emphasized enough how important coherent, regular and fact-based dissemination of information is. This work is a cornerstone in dealing with the past, as well as in enhancing global justice for the present and future. And thus of crucial importance for the two major institutions in this field, the ICC and the ICTY, as said, represented here by Herman and Serge. Without myself getting into further details about the Fondation itself or its newest project, I would like to pass the floor to Professor Pierre Hazan, who will explain to you more in detail what to be expected by this project. But once again, before I do that, I would like to thank you again, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this event today, Mr. Brammertz and Mr. von Hebel for sharing some of their valuable time for this important project. The people behind the project, Pierre Hazan and his team, for coming to The Hague today, and last but not least, the ICC and its protocol unit, which made it possible for us today to hold this event at the ICC premises. Thank you very much, and Mr. Hazan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you today. And I would like first and foremost to thank the Swiss mission and the Ambassador Markus Berlin, Jan Skalski, the Swiss mission, the ICC Secretariat, and also I would like to thank Serge Brammertz and Herman von Hebel to be here and to support and participate to this event. I'm standing here today with some emotions. This morning I was reading, maybe like some of you, the International New York Times, and there was the editorial on ethnic cleansing currently happening as we speak in Central African Republic. And you know, and you can find these numbers, 600,000 people being displaced, half of them trying to find some place in the neighboring countries, and you see these numbers, and you know that behind these abstract statistics you have human people. And that brought me back to some memories 20 years ago when I was, as a journalist, I was covering the war in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And I witnessed the destruction of houses. I remember going into different camps from different sides and seeing people losing more than 20 or 30 kilos and the feeling of despair. I remember also the feeling of fear and bombs, and also the people sometimes going into a bus and not knowing if they ever will be able to see their home again. So, like each of you, really, I was horrified by the tragedy which was unfolding at the time in the middle of Europe. At the same time, I was also covering the other side of the conflict, the diplomatic side. It was in quiet and peaceful Geneva, my hometown. Maybe, I guess, many of you know the Palais des Nations, the UN building in Geneva. And there was a strange scene happening at the time. I think it was the 12th of December, 92. In one part on the UN building, there was a red carpet, there were flowers for the peace negotiations to take place, the so-called peace negotiations, and with the international mediators. And on the other part of the same building, the very same day, but in another room with no flowers, nothing, there's some lawyers actually working that day. And they were working according to the UN Security Council Resolution 780, which was to investigate what crimes which were committed at the time, and sometimes by the very same people which were not very far away in the same building. So to investigate the war crimes which were committed in former Yugoslavia. And among the participants at this peace conference, I remember General Mladic, who was there with a sense of total impunity. No one could have ever imagined that the lawyers who were in that room will be one day so effective that this commission of experts will be the embryo of the ICTY. And a few weeks ago, I came back to The Hague. I went to visit with my students that time the ICTY. I saw Serge Brammertz, but I saw also behind a bulletproof glass General Mladic, who was answering regarding the Srebrenica massacres. That is to say that in 20 years' time, the panorama, the landscape of international justice has dramatically changed. And in addition to international criminal justice developments, there have been some 40 or 50 truth and reconciliation commissions. Some are good, some are no good. Some are actually quite terrible or counterproductive. But today, there is indeed an intense activity on justice initiatives. We can think about the current Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Brazil. We can think of the African Extraordinary Chambers in Dakar, Senegal, which is currently putting on trial Senabre, the former Chadian dictator. We can think also of the opening of an ICC preliminary investigation in Ukraine, or about the International Commission of Investigation in Syria or on North Korea. My point is the following. There is intense judicial activity, which is generating in turn passionate debates about the merits and the shortcomings of these justice tools. Critics, and we all in this room, we know about it, including some governments, have accused the ICC of being a neo-colonial top-down instrument. Others are saying the opposite, that international justice and other justice mechanisms are a crucial tool for enhancing the rule of law. This debate must take place, and with full public participation, but based on balanced and real information. I guess many of you in this room know Georges Abissab. Georges Abissab was a brilliant judge at the ICTY, and he was also one of my dearest law professors. Once he told me with his usual humor, we judges are not like cosmonauts released by the weightlessness of space. We live in the realities of this world. Indeed, public participation is part of these political realities. It is even more than that. Public participation is in fact the main raison d'être of these justice initiatives. And ultimately, public participation depends upon access to fair and pluralistic information. We believe that free access to balanced and independent information is crucial for justice initiatives to succeed. That's why we put our efforts to develop a new media platform called justiceinfo.net that we are presenting today. So let me be more specific about justiceinfo.net. First, we need to create a focal point. Today there are dozens of justice initiatives, as I mentioned earlier, which are taking place at the local, at the international, or at the regional levels. However, there is no focal point to keep track of these intense judicial activities coming from different bodies, Truth Commission, hybrid tribunal, international tribunal, and so on, programs of reparations. So justiceinfo.net can be this focal point. It will provide a unified vision on a single and openly accessible platform, and it will rely on Fondation Hirondelle network, which today has more than 220 journalists at its immediate disposal in conflict and post-conflict societies. So we are working on the ground and are local journalists. So, and secondly, we need to contribute also to this feeling of ownership. In 1924, a British judge said famously, not only must justice be done, it must also to be seen to be done. But this is not always the case today. 2 weeks ago, I was in Bamako, Mali. Even in parliament, let alone in civil society, information on the role of the ICC is scarce. There is today a Truth Commission being established in Bamako, but people know very, very little about it. Even if you take your smartphone and Google Truth Commission Mali, you won't find hardly any up-to-date information regarding what's happening there. So if we talk about ownership, it is a crucial element that this information, which does exist, is to be provided. And with more than 20 local journalists of Fondation Hirondelle in Bamako and in the rest of Mali, I think we can be instrumental in providing a fair and balanced information. Third, I think we need also to highlight contradictions and challenges whenever they occur. Sometimes in the same country there is a lack of coherence between justice initiatives and local public programs. Let me give you a striking example coming back to Bosnia-Herzegovina. The international community has invested more than $2 billion to help the ICTY. But today, as we speak, in secondary school throughout Bosnia-Herzegovina, there is not one, but there are 3 different curriculums of history, each taught according to the respective ethnicity of the students. And this is happening in the middle of Europe. So the ICTY might well be doing the best job possible in prosecuting war criminals from all sides, yet the education system is going the other way. It is fueling the nationalist agenda, fueling resentment among the youth. So we believe that justiceinfo.net can play a key role raising public awareness about such contradictions and challenges. Fourth, last but not least, we need also to link early warning systems and information to the public. Justiceinfo.net will also serve as an early warning media outlet, linking the voice of the affected communities to mechanisms helping to prevent human rights violations. Early warning system has indeed come a long way since the genocide in Rwanda 20 years ago. Adam Atiang, the UN Special Advisor to the Prevention of Genocide, and the African Union Early Warning System are playing today a crucial role in sounding the alarm about what's happening in South Sudan and in the Central African Republic. And we believe with our 40 local journalists in South Sudan and also 40 more in Central African Republic, Fondation Hirondelle can play a positive role and make a difference. So for all these reasons, I believe that JusticeInfo should be established using the network, the know-how, and the 20 years of experience of Fondation Hirondelle. Fondation Hirondelle was created almost 20 years ago as a direct response to the hate broadcast of Radio Télévision d'Émile Colline, so instrumental in the death machinery of a genocide in Rwanda. So Fondation Hirondelle decided to provide a rare commodity that the population needed desperately, balanced and credible news which enabled people to make informed decisions. And sometimes, as we all know, that can make a difference in life and death. Some 20 years later, Fondation Hirondelle has created or brought its expertise to 12 radio stations from the Central African Republic to Kosovo, from Sierra Leone to the Democratic Republic of Congo and Nepal. Today, more than 30 million people are listening to Fondation Hirondelle radio station and programming. So we want to make use and to broaden our network along with other means such as social networks to reach to societies, but also to listen to the different voices within them. So we believe that the right to information, independent media, and rule of law are crucial in any society. So we also believe that social participation is indispensable for these three pillars of an open democratic society to be effective. Justice Info is the right tool, we believe, to encourage this participation, reaching the local, the global, and back. I know that we all believe in these fundamental values. And in this new venture, we are asking for your thematic, financial, and political support. I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you. I would also here to mention that I didn't come along. There is also some of our team. So let me introduce you Caroline Diman, Chief of Operations, and also Gabrielle Kuhner, who is Program Officer, and also Gilad Ben-Nun from Leipzig University, who helped us also to work on this project. So, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. When I was asked a few weeks ago by the Swiss ambassador to say a few words in relation to this new project, I was very, very happy to accept, because Hirondelle, Fondation Hirondelle, was one of the very first media organizations I worked with many years ago when I worked at this tribunal as deputy prosecutor. When we went to Kinshasa, our main media interlocutor at that time was really Hirondelle and your different partners there. And it was really at a period, as I said, in 2003, where I just moved from the National Prosecution Office to the international level, and where the interaction with media and communication is a very big difference. If you are really embedded in a prosecutor in Brussels, you are very careful when you're speaking with media, minimum communication, you're very careful. If you work in the international field, that's really the experience I made over the last 11 years. Communication is key. Communication with within the tribunal, of course, but mainly towards the different groups you want to serve, the victims community, but also very important, the perpetrators community. Those are areas where I think we should really focus on and we should consider as a priority. If I look back to the last 7 years at the ICTY, where we see, of course, a number of areas where we have been relatively successful, 161 indictments, no fugitives at large, etc. You know the statistics. But if there's one area where probably we could have done better, it's in relation to outreach. If I speak about outreach, I really mean explaining what we are doing and education. Explaining what we are doing is speaking about the judgment, or having the media around the world speaking about our judgment. There also, I've seen a lot of frustrations in our office over the last 7 years, and we had 2 years ago big meeting in The Hague with a few hundred media editors, and that the privilege to speak there, to give somehow feedback from international prosecutors towards the mainstream media. And my main point there was really to say that what is the most difficult for us is that we are in the media, if I say we, international justice with individual cases, is when there is an arrest and perhaps the first day in court. And then you never ever see any more about it in the media. And if they are in the media, I remember very much when 2008 Karadzic was arrested, which was a big success for us. If you look at the media, there was much more coverage about how he was hiding, Dr. Dabic with his beard, than about the victims and the crimes and all the crimes and victims behind. You remember all the Charles Taylor trial, where in the 2 days where Naomi Campbell was in The Hague, there was more media coverage than in the 3 years of trial. This is the reality of mainstream media today. And if we look at the local media, we have also a very difficult situation. Or you have local media which is mainly not very objective. If you look at the media in Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, during the time trials were ongoing, very rare were objective articles, a lot of emotions in those articles, or difficult for media officials from those regions to find the necessary budget to come to The Hague to cover the trials. So therefore I absolutely believe that there is room for improvement in this area, and this project is very ambitious, but if it works and it's fully implemented, I think it really answers a need. But not only the need in relation to communication to the different population, but also in relation to education, because this is the other big important problem. You have already mentioned the issue of having different history books if you go to Bosnia, which shows that everybody has still his own way of seeing justice. But we have seen it 2 months ago, where there was a football game of junior teams from Serbia and Bosnia, and the match was interrupted because the Serbian people were shouting songs in relation to glorifying Srebrenica and about General Mladic, which is extremely disappointing to see that 20 years after the conflict, young people are still considering what happened in Srebrenica not as a genocide, but something almost heroic by those who have perpetrated those crimes. And that's really one of the major areas where we are trying as International Tribunal, and also myself, to be involved in outreach, giving speeches, conferences at schools, universities in the former Yugoslavia, but it's really an area which is very problematic. Speaking, of course, only about the situation in the former Yugoslavia, because that's where I'm working over the last 7 years, but if you look at the global scale, the situation is much worse. Informing about what is happening in an objective way, making sure that new generations understand about what is happening, it's crucial. That's why you really don't have to convince me to support this project, and I very much hope that you will receive the necessary support from the international community, from the diplomatic community, universities, schools, and other stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, colleagues, friends, and old friends as well. It was also for me a great pleasure to be here and to be present at the launch of this very important initiative in the field of media reporting of international justice issues. I think I can actually sort of go on where Serge left it. I think in my work, when I was working at the Special Court for Sierra Leone in 2006, 2009, the people that I was regularly interviewed were by the prosecutor there as well, Stephen Repp and others, were regularly interviewed by local journalists who were supported by Radio Hirondelle. I've seen the same also in Arusha with the Rwanda Tribunal. And last year, when I made my first trip to Kinshasa, I was interviewed by Radio Okapi, a very known name also in the group of Fondation Hirondelle. So for me, it didn't take me much in order to be confident, in order to come over here, in order to pay tribute and to support the big event that leads to strengthening the work of Hirondelle and the purposes set behind. I think it is a very important event that we are focusing on, and I think we can't overstress the importance of the media in the work of international justice. I think Serge already indicated how important media is, how sometimes also from our side we are sometimes frustrated by the focus of media. You know, when a Charles Taylor case is going on in relation to a particular witness, there's slightly more attention than in relation to all witnesses together. I worked at the Yugoslav Tribunal when the Milosevic case got started. The first day you saw about 30, 40 cars out there. Everyone was committed to following the trial until the very end. In 3 days later you saw 3 or 4 cars standing over there, and I think the last one lasted for about 2 weeks, and then also they moved on. And I think that also shows the challenge between the role of media in international justice and international justice mechanisms themselves. Our work, unfortunately, is always slow. Always takes a lot of time. You have to carefully listen to witnesses. The appearance of witnesses can be an issue. The trials simply need to take a long time because as judges, as parties in the proceedings, we have an obligation to do our work up to very high international standards. At the same time, of course, journalists have the obligation to present information, but to do it fast and quick. You need to bring concrete results. There's no paper that is interested in publishing a detailed account of witness number 230 in the Charles Taylor case if that has been a result of other material that has been presented before. No one has the intention, no one has the ability to read up on all that. So finding a balance where media can really adequately follow the work of international justice mechanisms, whether it's the ICC or the ICTY or any other international tribunal, also national tribunals, of course, is a big challenge. But I think at the same time, there is an important need to ensure good cooperation between international courts and the media. And of course, within the court here, but also at the ICTY, Special Court for Sierra Leone, other courts, there's a lot of focus on the press and information department, outreach. Certainly in Sierra Leone, there was a lot of outreach to the East End, but even there was no way we could be effective without partners out there, with different NGOs, but also with the media. We often, for the court speaking again, we often can't go into particular situation countries. There's a lot of things going on in Central African Republic, yeah, you mentioned it. We can't go in there. The prosecutor is really keen on getting started with her preliminary examination. But at the same time, people there need to know that there is a court out there, that there is an examination going on, and that examination may later on go into an investigation. But people need to have the perspective. We don't have the facilities for that. We need partners out there, NGOs, civil society, but also the press as an important partner in order to work on that. So for all these reasons, I very warmly welcome the new Justice InfoNet initiative, the website that is being launched today by Hirondelle, in cooperation also with Harvard Humanitarian Initiative and Oxford Transitional Justice Research. So that is, I think, where we are focusing very much. I hope that the work that has been done by Hirondelle already in different countries will continue, and I was very pleased to hear from you, Pierre, that you already were in Mali a few weeks ago. That is also where we as a court get started in we already get started with the investigations over there, and we can simply see that you are ahead of us. And that is probably how it normally should be. But you also pave the way, or you can pave the way for our presence over there. So I think we can simply shake hands, have a common purpose, and really, in that respect, looking forward to an intensive cooperation. I hope and I appeal to all states and other organizations to support your work, because your work supports our work. Thank you very much.
Well, Serge and Herman, thank you very much. That's very, very interesting, very convincing, and even passionate statements, and for your full support of that project, which it fully deserves, I think, in the interest of global justice and for the victims. So thank you very much. I think it's now the time for, to open the floor for remarks, questions. I think all 3 participants here will be very happy to answer these, if there are any.
Once again, that's a new climate we have been able to create at the ICC. You see, there's always good to come. Everyone agrees, everyone is convinced, you know. And
Consensus.
Consensus. So we bring global justice diplomacy together. That's one of the rules as well. And from now on, how to reach out, communication and information. Okay, it's the start of that project, of course. Questions might arise, so it's not the last opportunity to allow your presentation. But please.
I read this morning, I've done my homework this morning reading the information we got by email, so it's very, very ambitious, very interesting. You will function in how many languages?
Well, that's very interesting. We want to use on a global basis French and English. But for instance, in Mali, we are already working in 5 languages. So there is French and 4 local languages. So the basic concept is to reach the people in the language they speak, and also through the communication, through the media they use. So in some countries, radio is a very powerful instrument. In other countries, it's mostly Facebook. In other countries, it would be text messages. So there might be a combination between a website. Let's take, for instance, in Chad. In Chad today, we have less than 3% of the people who get internet on a regular basis. So it's minimal. And if you think about Dakar, Senegal, where the African Extraordinary Chambers is taking place for the trial of Hissène Habré, about 3,600 kilometers apart. And you don't have a single journalist from Chad living in Senegal. And the opposite is also true. The question is, so you're doing a huge effort to create an international or hybrid tribunal, and you have no one to be able to communicate. So the question we are asking ourselves is how to deal with that situation. And so the idea is to create, we have basic infrastructure in a number of countries, and to create maybe an additional one in N'Djamena, which will work in collaboration with local radio in Chad, in the different languages in Chad. So that will answer a lot of questions regarding this lack of communication between Dakar and Chad. And so there will be the internet, there will be the main radio station, but the content will be available for all media also. So that will generate in turn more training and more capacity building. So that's the basic idea. I don't know if someone from the team who has been more involved want to add anything.
No, the issue of languages is key, because for justice to be heard, it's one thing, but to be understood by people, you have to communicate in the local languages. And if you're talking about conflict and crisis or fragile states, we know radio is the best media to reach out to people. This is why Hirondelle has been working mainly throughout radio stations over the last 20 years. And even though the development of internet and social media is a new factor, if you really want to have a large impact for the next 15 to 20 years, radio remains the media to work with. And working with local journalists enables to work in local languages. And our experience is that to build credibility so that you have a media people trust and go to get information they can rely on, you need information in local languages with the same content. If you speak to a population, a part of the population, for instance, in DRC, in Swahili, in Lingala, in Kikongo, people understand these different languages and they can check that they get the same information wherever they live in the country, whatever ethnic affiliation they have. And then they feel they are treated with dignity and they are not manipulated because it's one language or the other. And this is a basic editorial principle we're using at Hirondelle. It's the same content in different languages, and really that gives the credibility.
I think it was impressive. Not very surprising, and this is not
criticism of the registry, but that in Mali, for instance, ICC and the whole investigation and all that is completely largely unknown. I mean, given also the fact that in Africa, nearly the only, as we heard just now, nearly the only means of communication is still, we will remain for a long time the radio. What conclusions, Herman, would you draw from that in terms of outreach of the ICC? Because it is essential as becoming a factor also locally, being accepted, being a positive factor in their life.
No, I think that's a very relevant question, and I think that if I look at the work of basically all the international tribunals, then I think all tribunals can say, you know what, we should have done more, and there is communication is such a key component of our work. It's one thing to do the work in-house in a good way, you know, that the judges have the support, but also that they work with full guarantee of the fair and effective proceedings, and that the parties are there all the time, etc. But if no one from the outside knows, then, and there you're right, you know, justice is not only a question of being done, but also seem to be done. The seem to be done is a huge component of the work that the court can't do on its own, but I think the court has to do more. And we have an event next week where the Croatian ambassador in order to also have a brainstorming amongst ourselves and with partners here in The Hague as to how to strengthen our communication. But I see that as a first step in a number of steps. And it's certainly also part of the organization I do in the registry to strengthen the work of the press office and the outreach office. We're doing an evaluation of our outreach so far later this year, with also the feedback, for example, from the person who designed outreach at the special court area. And to bring the expertise from other courts together and to see what we can do more. It's of course also a question of financial support. We have to have people in-house, we have to have people on the ground as well in our field offices. Our field offices are not sufficiently visible. For example, 2 weeks ago, I was in Nuremberg and I was talking to a judge who deals with the same crimes under Ugandan law as the ICC, and he wasn't aware of the fact that the ICC had an office in Uganda, and it shows that as far as we do have our work out here, it is not sufficiently advertised, it's not sufficiently known. Sometimes for security reasons we have to be careful with making it too known, of course, as well. There is a problem there, so every now and then as well. But overall, I think there's a huge amount that needs to be done more, which the court should do, but where also others have to play a role, and that's also why I'm very happy with this initiative, because it so much shows that there is also recognition from Pierre, from his team, that there is a responsibility for radio, for Facebook if there is internet facilities, etc. But in many African countries, radio is the most important form of communication. And civil society organizations also to do outreach on a smaller scale. But it's the totality that has to be done, but there's much to be desired and much to be done. I agree with that.
Are there any more questions or remarks?
Shall I just shout it? Good afternoon. I'm from the Coalition for the International Criminal Court, an NGO with a number of members in a number of situation countries. I had a lot of questions, so I hope that's okay. They're only little ones. The first one was, I think with the court we've often seen a misunderstanding between outreach and communications. Outreach being the court doing its best to create an environment which is conducive to the work of the court, and communications being more of just sort of general information and media work. I wondered if there was sort of a distinction you were going to do within the project, in as much as will it be reactive to what's happening on the ground, or are you going to be proactively going into different situations. And I was also interested as well with, I think it's on page 9 of your booklet, which talks about bridging the gap between international and national institutions. And again, I sort of wondered, are you going to be sort of reporting? Well, I'm interested in how that would work actually. So maybe you could just expand on that. Another question I had is relating to education. I think it's particularly interesting that you're going to approach, well, you say here, use it as a teaching tool. So I wondered, again, if you could expand on that, because especially in I would suggest, situation countries, it'll be more and more important to teach young people and students so that the mistakes of the past are avoided. So maybe if you could just comment on that. I had another question which related to, obviously, access to internet within some of the situation countries. I think we've touched upon that, but maybe if you'd like to expand on that. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. I will answer to some of your questions, and I will also refer to my colleagues for some of them. So definitely, it's not part of our outreach. It's an independent media. It has to be. I mean, it has to be proactively engaged in the conversation about justice. The shortcomings, the potential, the debate. There will be space for debates with different voices. So we understand, we all can see the extreme polarization of a debate today. And we believe that it's very important that we can create a platform where this debate can take place. So for us, it's very clear not to be part of an institutional machinery of justice, but to be independent. Education and teaching tools. I think it's for us. We are very happy to have two very interesting and strong partners. One is Harvard Humanitarian Initiative, and the other one is Oxford's Transitional Justice Network, and both are very different actually. Harvard is basically doing polls and surveys in conflict regions. They understand, they look for immediate response of the expectations of the people, what do they expect from justice initiatives, what do they think of the ICC, and so on and so on. And so that will inform us about, that will give us a lot of elements, and from these elements we can build analysis and give more information. And regarding Oxford, it's a network of more than 100 academics working on specific regions. So we want also to provide very authoritative information with background information, timeline, understanding of the conflicts, so that they will help us really to give an academic backbone on top of information. Regarding the internet, just a quick word to say that with the Chinese technology, the landscape in Africa is changing very rapidly, because very soon there will be, in 2 years' time, I think a lot of people will have phones, smartphones with Facebook access. So here again, that will change the landscape very quickly. But I would like the other members of the team who know more to give additional information.
Sure. Maybe that bridging the gap between national and international, this is why it is a platform, because we have the ground journalists in the countries with additional stringers and correspondents that can give a voice and report on not what's going on in The Hague, but what's going on in the communities, in the places where population were affected by crimes, by violations, and so forth. And we're going to put this in mirror with initiatives at the global level, being international criminal courts, special tribunals, commissions, and so forth, special reports from inquiries, missions, and so forth. Very often, you have the global level taking place, the local level taking place, but no back and forth between these two. And this is really the main ambition and objective of this platform. It's to allow the connection. And it is a media, but we call it a platform because it's a space where these different levels of information will meet. And as they meet, they're going to interact and bounce to each other and create dialogue and back and forth. On the internet issue, again, it is a platform because it will have different support, text, audio, and video. It's very important that audio files are available. For some of you, you may know our work we have done in Arusha covering the International Tribunal for Rwanda for 16 years with the Hirondelle News Agency. We are learning lessons from that. It was only written dispatches. They were reused in newspaper in Rwanda, in Tanzania, in Kenya to some extent. But a lot of the local radio could not, from a dispatch, create a sound and an audio voice to be broadcast for the local communities. And this is really something that was missing and that we've learned from our work in Arusha. So making sure that the newsroom of Justice Info has the information available as an audio product, as a video product, as a print product will really help the media, wherever they are, in whatever format they want to work, to have that information and use it.
And maybe one extra comment to that, we started off with making sort of distinction between outreach and communication. In my view, and we have of course those discussions internally as well, and I know that Osvaldo is not looking at me, but you know, in itself, I don't see a fundamental difference between the press office as such and the work of outreach. I think these are complementary elements. Of course, your audiences are different, your methods may be different, but it is all about, and that's also why last year, again under the chair of the Croatian ambassador, we had a discussion also on the messaging of the court. And that is what it is really about. What are our messages? What is it that we want to bring out? What is the information that we want to provide? But also what is the kind of communication? And the same what you were saying, it's the interaction that you need. You need to get the feedback from people on the ground. What is it that they have or don't have? And what is it that we are able, or other platforms and other partners with us, able to communicate? But it's part of a wider picture where the court has its own responsibility, but there are different circles of other players around as well.
It's okay, it's okay. No problem for you. I think you will survive that.
Maybe just something on support of the state parties, because you were asking for support, political, financial, obviously. Is there any other primary role for the state parties besides the solution that is receiving of the consent?
What is, I think, we would like to create this platform to enrich the discussion. Not so it's, I believe it would be good to have a different point of view to be expressed in this platform, and so we would welcome any contribution and substance from various actors, because as I mentioned earlier, I think there's this process of polarization which is very worrying, and I think international justice is maybe at a crucial time now. So in order to do that, I think it will be helpful. But I would like Gilad Ben-Nun also to add something.
I think on the question of state parties, the early warning sign seems to me to be crucial. We in Leipzig have a standing partnership with the Institute of Peace and Security in Addis Ababa. I spend a lot of time back and forth in Addis and at the African Union. I was there last year when the African Union took out the resolution on the Uhuru Kenyatta issue, and the whole of Addis basically blew up on the issue. But on the other side, when you look at the early warning system, the early warning mechanism put in place of the peace and security architecture of the African Union, these are types of activities which NGOs can't take. These are types of activities where state parties, probably within regional organizations, be it the African Union, be it IGAD, be it the EU, and so on, can take. And it seems to me that when we're dealing with an editorial of the Central African Republic today in the New York Times, or South Sudan, or all these, it's in this early warning, which then can be projected for more people to discuss. But the feeding into that in those types of mechanisms, which only state parties can take.
And I think we are also working hard with Adam Adieng, who I mentioned earlier, to find a way to create the best collaboration possible between his office, Prevention of Genocide, and our radio station.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's just the right moment to conclude at least the formal discussion, because next meetings are waiting for us even at this embassy. So once again, thank you very much to the panelists for their very interesting and important contributions. I also would like to urge you to follow up on the matter, do your homework, as the prosecutor told you, that you don't avoid any problems with it. We don't have enough time. And hope to see you again in the same context. And I think there's still some sandwiches, coffee left. So if you want to go on with the informal discussion, that is please feel free. I don't think that this room will be used, so don't need to hurry away from this meeting. Thank you very much. Not too bad.